Descending into the pit at number 10, we meet the frightful case of Joseph Garcia, a guard at Rikers Island, New York, charged with repeatedly assaulting inmates in his care over a 2-year period. His horrific reign of terror ended in 2018, when he was convicted for his ghoulish deeds. Inmates, stripped of their freedom, found themselves facing not only the isolation of incarceration, but also the nightmarish onslaught of Garcia's unchecked authority. This monstrous guard took it upon himself to enforce his own brutal version of justice, turning the prison into his personal house of horrors. His reign, however, was not everlasting. The truth of his malevolent deeds slowly crawled out from the prison's bleak shadows. In 2018, Garcia found himself on the other side of the law, shackled by the very system he had once been a part of. He was tried and convicted for his abuse of power, his reign of terror terminated by the same justice he had long since abandoned. When we think of prisons, we visualize criminals paying their dues to society. But what happens when those who hold the keys become the evildoers, abusing their power in the most unspeakable ways? Our fearful expedition takes us into the chilling cell blocks of the top 10 prison guards who took it way too far with inmates. Brace yourself, dear viewer, for a jarring journey into the heart of darkness where power mutates into malevolence and the line between right and wrong blurs into a nightmarish fog. Slithering into number 9, we expose the shocking saga of William Wilson, a guard at Florida State Prison, who faced charges for the brutal mistreatment and inhumane conditions he imposed on his inmates. His tales of torment still echo through the prison corridors. In a morbid perversion of his role, Wilson did not guard the inmates but tormented them. He enforced brutal conditions, treating his charges less like human beings and more like dispensable pawns in his sadistic game. The twisted satisfaction he derived from his abuse of power painted a chilling portrait of a man who revelled in the suffering of others. But the anguished cries of the tormented would not be silenced. They echoed through the prison corridors, creeping through the bars until they were finally heard by the outside world. Charges were brought against this abhorrent abuser of authority, bringing his macabre reign of terror to a shocking close. Skulking into our 8th position, we uncover the chilling story of Pamela Freeman, a correctional officer in Oklahoma, who was found guilty of assaulting an inmate who merely sought medical help. Her callous disregard for human suffering landed her in the cell block she once guarded. Her grotesque action was a stark betrayal of her oath to maintain order and safety. This malicious mockery of her role revealed a chilling indifference to human suffering. Freeman, instead of being a symbol of law and order, became a beastly embodiment of brutality. Her malevolent masquerade was finally unmasked, leading to a shocking twist in her dreadful tale. The courtroom, not dissimilar to a cosmic tribunal of justice, found her guilty of her abhorrent actions. The officer, once the guard, was sentenced to occupy a cell herself. Lurching into number 7, we encounter the nightmarish narrative of Daniel Schwartz, a guard at the infamous Abu Ghraib prison. His disturbing methods of prisoner humiliation were exposed to the world in 2004, forever tainting the image of the institution he was supposed to uphold. His chilling modus operandi did not involve physical torture alone, but extended to psychological torment. He would subject prisoners to unthinkable acts of humiliation, stripping them of dignity, one shuddering moment at a time. His joy in their torment was a perverse twist to an already gruesome tale. This horrifying carnival of cruelty was brought to light in 2004, when the world was confronted with the gruesome reality behind Abu Ghraib's high walls. The exposure resulted in an uproar of disgust and anger as Schwartz's wicked actions were displayed for all to see. Sliding into number 6, we meet the notorious Stephen Slevin, a New Mexico prison guard who locked a mentally ill inmate in solitary confinement for nearly 2 years. His chilling neglect led to a landmark legal battle in 2013. This mentally ill inmate, already grappling with the ghosts within, was left to spiral further into his own darkness. As days turned into weeks, then months, then years, he was denied the essential psychiatric care he so desperately needed, his plight echoing off the cold, unforgiving walls of his solitary cell. In 2013, however, this grim tale took an unexpected twist. Slevin's abominable act of negligence came to light, igniting a landmark legal battle that resonated within courtrooms and beyond. This case underscored the cruel, sometimes invisible torments that can lurk behind the bars of a prison cell. Our top 5 commences with the gruesome tale of Scott New, a San Francisco prison guard who turned a blind eye to humanity, forcing gladiator-style fights among inmates. His bloodlust spectacle was exposed in 2015, ending his sadistic reign. His fiendish form of entertainment was a gross perversion of justice and duty. Noy derived twisted pleasure from turning the inmates under his watch into unwilling gladiators, forced to fight for his amusement. These were not mere scuffles or skirmishes, my petrified pals, but brutal bare-knuckle brawls orchestrated by a man who should have been a protector, not a puppeteer. This arena of agony wasn't hidden in the shadows for long. The curtain was pulled back in 2015, revealing the macabre spectacle that had been unfolding behind the prison walls. The inmates, who had been pitted against each other in Noy's sickening show, were finally given a voice, their testimonies putting an end to this sadistic guard's reign of terror. Looming in the 4th spot, we are met with the horrifying actions of Charles Greene Jr, another guard associated with the Abu Ghraib prison scandal. His shocking role in the physical and psychological abuse of prisoners, including orchestrating acts of humiliation and torture, marked a terrifying chapter in the annals of prison history. Greene wasn't just a guard crossing the line. He stomped over it with a maniacal grin, delving deep into the realm of the macabre. Physical abuse was merely the tip of the iceberg. Under his watch, the prison walls reverberated with the cries of tormented souls subjected to unimaginable psychological trauma. This wasn't simply a case of power misuse, my mortified mates, but a blood-curdling showcase of human cruelty. Creeping into the 3rd position, we encounter the terrible tale of Russell Metcalf, a guard at Attica Correctional Facility in New York. Metcalf's gross misconduct led to the death of an inmate, and his subsequent conviction in 1999 sent shockwaves throughout the penal system. Metcalf wasn't your average guard, ghouls. This wicked watchman's egregious abuse of power not only violated the code of his duty, but the basic tenets of human dignity. His monstrous maltreatment of an inmate didn't merely infringe upon their rights, but it also extinguished a life. The year was 1999, a year that would forever be stained with the dark deeds of this deranged guard. Metcalf's sinister saga reached its terrifying climax when one of his tormented inmates met a tragic and untimely end. The echo of this atrocious act spread far and wide, shocking the penal system to its core. Our gruesome runner-up, in the 2nd place, is the case of Joseph Pearson. Working at the Ely State Prison in Nevada, Pearson's unspeakable acts of cruelty and neglect resulted in a prisoner's death due to medical negligence, causing an outcry for prison reform. This man of authority, someone meant to maintain order, instead chose a path of terror with acts of inhumanity that would turn even the most hardened soul pale. Imagine, dear listeners, a prison guard so callous, so devoid of empathy, that his ghastly negligence and abominable cruelty resulted in the death of a prisoner. And not just any death, oh no, a demise that could have been avoided if only the cries for medical help had been answered. Finally, at the peak of our chilling countdown, is the nightmare-inducing narrative of John Burton. As a guard at the Louisiana State Penitentiary, Burton inflicted unprecedented levels of abuse and terror on his inmates, his actions leading to severe physical harm, and in some cases, death. His reign of terror ended in 2008, when he was convicted for his monstrous deeds. Now, Burton wasn't just a guard who stepped over the line. No, my grisly companions, he was a monster clad in a guard's uniform, who revelled in the terror he inflicted upon those in his charge. His abuse was not just verbal or emotional, it was physical and horrifically brutal, leading to extensive injuries, broken bodies, and even death. Like a puppeteer manipulating marionettes, Burton controlled his inmates through a regime of terror, an unprecedented level of abuse that cast a perpetual shadow of fear over the prison. His reign, however, was not endless. The year 2008 marked the end of his monstrous rule, as he was finally convicted for his sickening actions. There we have it, my ghastly ghouls, a grim gallery of guards who turned from protectors to predators. This appalling descent into darkness serves as a stark reminder that even institutions of justice can become breeding grounds for the worst of human behaviour. That's all for tonight, my eerie enthusiasts. Until our next frightful encounter, remember. Not all monsters lurk in the dark. Some walk in the daylight cloaked in uniforms. Farewell for now, and remember to keep your humanity close, even when we delve into the heart of darkness.